What's happening, guys? This is James Blonde with MMOHuts.com. This time we're taking a first look at Card Hunter, which has just been officially released after being in a forever long-term beta. And as the name implies, it's a collectible card game, but it's different than your typical ITCGs. It's developed and published by Blue Manchu, who happens to have a broad range of successful games underneath their developers' belts. So this game has all kinds of RPG elements, along with itself being a satire on old TCGs, so I'll spend a short time showing off the workings of the game, along with what makes it surprisingly awesome, to say the least. Alright, so this game works a lot like a turn-based RPG where you build up characters with gear and fight both PvE and PvP. You can choose to work your way through the game's D&D style campaign missions, as the game does a great job teaching you how to play, or you can try your luck at ranked multiplayer matches, and at the same time getting support from the AI showing you how the multiplayer functions. Starting with the campaign missions, you work your way through a few rounds and assemble your adventure team consisting of 3 heroes, a warrior, a priest, and a wizard. Each differentiate based on what gear they can carry, which you'll see relates to what skills they can work with. You choose from 3 different races within choosing a class, a human, elf, or dwarf, and each of these governs health and overall movement, as you can kind of see from the cards themselves. The dwarves walk, the humans run, and the elves dash, and of course in turn-based games like this one, it means how far they can actually move on the board. Each of your heroes starts with their base set of cards, and it looks like this depending on the race and class that you choose. And you use these cards to control your heroes on the board. And the coolest aspect of the game, well, it's my favorite part besides the random drawing of the cards, is that the gear you collect and outfit your character with determines what cards your deck has for that character. It's such an easy and cool concept. Your class's weapon does the attack moves along with the other special moves. Your boots can give you armor and better movement, and in case of the warrior, the shield provides blocking maneuvers. So the cards associated with the items make sense. For the most part. I'm not sure how a club can heal you. So after each match, you pick up new loot in random chests that can possibly give you better cards to work with in your deck. Then, as you level up each of your heroes, when you're playing in the campaign at least, you gain new slots for more gear so that way you can further customize your deck and playstyle. Alright, that's cool and all, but how does the game actually play? Well, there are a lot less rules than there may seem from watching and not actually playing. It's pretty straightforward. The basics are movement cards are blue, attacking cards are red, blocking cards are green, multi-cards, ones that both attack and move at the same time, and block and attack, you'll see what I'm talking about, are two-toned. And healing or special ability cards, ones typically seen used by the priests, are white. So one nice thing about the game is that it's like playing Magic the Gathering or D&D without all the mess. The game keeps up with everything for you, as you would expect from an ITCG, but it's still nice to point that out. So once it's your turn to move, you select a card from any of your heroes to begin your move. All the cards are randomly drawn from your deck that you build for each of your characters. So sometimes you might have all move cards or all defensive cards, and you can't really do much about that, but then again, that's one nice thing that makes the game exciting and fun and addicting. Fresh gameplay is at the luck of the draw. So once you feel that you've exhausted all your cards, you can click pass. Now the round ends when both players pass. You want to try to use as many of your cards as possible during the round, but that doesn't always happen. So in between rounds you have to discard any extra cards on each hero over 2, which that 2 you can actually bring to the next round with you. In early levels of the game, and for a good while unless the piece of gear is legendary, there are always cards within a single piece of gear that are awesome for the most part, and some that aren't for the most part. Like my warrior, for example, is a level 6, and I'm still using a level 1 rare weapon, and because of its rarity, the low end of the cards really isn't that bad. See, I get this violent swing card a lot of the times, and it's won matches single-handedly. It kind of makes or breaks things sometimes. The nice thing is, like I said, the worst card I can get out of this weapon is a weak strike, which only does 2 attack damage. So the way I've been looking at gear is by comparing the weakest card in the group versus the most beneficial. But that isn't always the best way to do it. That just seemed to work for me at early level. And that's just another fun aspect of the game, is figuring out the best gear to use. Because other than the cards being random, you'll notice the boards are always different because you're going through the campaign. You'll face so many different enemies and all kinds of different terrain, which affects the way you can move on the board. Like, if you come across a varied terrain, you have to stop before you can actually cross it with another move card. Plus, there are walls and other objects that you can't actually cross, so sometimes you're battling in a narrow hallway, which can really make the strategy of the game completely different. Sometimes you want to put your squishy characters behind your tankier characters, or have a priest somewhere around you so that way that you can heal those other characters in between rounds. I'd like to say that the strategy in the game is very case by case because of the board changing all the time. So when you defeat an enemy, you get 2 victory points, or stars rather, and sometimes there are challenges that have you face a large number of difficult enemies but only has you defeat enough to fill your victory point meter. Or sometimes there are victory areas that you can get points from by controlling after each of the round. So sometimes that's actually the strategy to go for. It can be very handy in PvP. Now, what happens when you lose? Well, you get to try 2 more times. After that, you can either buy your adventurers back into the game with gold from selling your gear, or start the campaign over again. This is one good reason to have gold on hand. If you get defeated and you have alternative gear that you can benefit from in your inventory, you can re-outfit your heroes before attempting it again. Gold is used, of course, to purchase items in the shops, but the items you purchase or get from loot have to be within a few levels of your characters in order to equip it. And later on, you'll deal with items that have power sockets that complicate your ability to socket them. The other currency in the game is pizza slices. As you can probably tell, these are purchased with real currency. These are used to purchase chests that produce 5 random pieces of gear, and depending on how much pizza you spend, determines the rarity of one or more of the items in those chests. You cannot directly purchase specific items with real money, or in this case, pizza slices. And you cannot purchase gold with pizza. You can, however, customize the way your heroes look with pizza slices, but it's purely cosmetic. On top of that, another way the game makes real money is if you join the Card Hunter Club. You can spend pizza to join, and you get a bonus item every time you beat a dungeon or win a match in multiplayer. Alright, so if you haven't noticed already, the theme of the game is sort of a satire on old tabletop games and the stereotype people associated with them playing in their basement, eating pizza, and definitely not talking to girls. In between rounds, the computer opponent, Gary, and his brother will make funny, nerdy comments about the game.
And now,
each piece of dialogue starts with a sound expression to help them portray the emotion in the statement. And it's funny because Gary will announce something about the match you're playing, and it sounds epic, but it means nothing. Or should I say, it's their way to implement the theme of the game and set the scene as if you're playing tabletop games with your friends in the basement. And every once in a while, the pizza girl shows up, and you'll see that Gary is destined to talk to her, but never actually does.
oh,
The game also does a good job of this by adding in ambient sounds related to the board you're playing. Like when you play against the zombies later on, you can hear faint screams in the background. It's actually pretty neat. It's subtle, but important. It's part of what shows the game is well polished already. So, as far as multiplayer goes, you can use pizza to purchase a starter kit that gives you 3 outfitted heroes. I want to say their gear is random. I'm pretty sure it is. But the nice thing is that the game lends you the first round of pizza slices to get you going. And this seems to be pretty much everything in the game. If it introduces new concepts, it tells you about them clearly. Every new card you use, it lets you pause and look at the card. And if it shows you something new that costs pizza, Gary spots you the first time. Which, to be honest with you, I think is the best way to introduce players into the cash shop system. So the heroes are set up at the same level in multiplayer to even the playing field, but players rank up by winning, and they get matched with each other by their ranking score. It's almost like an elo system. But one major aspect of multiplayer is that you still collect loot after matches, and you can use that loot along with your starter hero's gear in your campaign and vice versa. And as of right now, the game doesn't have an auction house or a way to trade cards.
yay!
So I guess that means it's not really a trading card game, but more of a collectible card game. I do hope there will never be an auction house. It doesn't need one in the first place, and we don't want another Diablo 3 repeat.
Ugh.
And so yeah, that's Card Hunter. Simple but in-depth idea and skill customization system. The game is now released after being in a beta for a good chunk of time. To me, it's a very well polished, extremely fun. In fact, it's one of the most entertaining games I've played in a while, and who would have thought it was a flash game that you could play in your browser? And I usually don't directly gravitate towards ITCGs. They just don't jump out and grab my attention. But yeah, this game is popular enough that there was a login queue to get into play. Not a problem we typically see in some of the other games we cover. They also plan on making a tablet version of the game, and that'll be trouble for me. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Head over to the Card Hunter profile at MMOHuts.com for more information about the game. But for now, that's going to be it for me. I'm James Blonde. See you out there, gamers.